Lottie and Sebastian Hoff from Staffbase. They're going to talk about designing the digital workplace. Is that a task for internal communication, yes or no? If you ask me that question, I already have an answer, but I won't tell you how I think about it. Can I ask Lottie and Sebastian to come to the stage, please?
Thank you. So obviously I'm not Lottie and Sebastian, I'm just Sebastian, and Lottie is sitting over there, but she's recovering a bit from a cold of last week, and her voice is still a bit gone, so I'm happy to spend the next couple of minutes together with you. And yeah, talking about Staffbase, you don't need to be afraid, this won't be a sales presentation at all. Hopefully the clicker is working. I don't have any Staffbase specific slides. My background is I'm working for the strategic advisory team at Staffbase. So we are a team of consultants coming from actual customers. And I attended global executive events twice, and I'm now finally on stage, which is a very proud moment for me. So I recently worked for a company introducing a new internal comms landscape, as I was responsible for digital transformation of comms and marketing. And my CEO got to me and said, hey, we have this employee magazine, and we don't know if anybody reads this. Can you make a digital version out of it? Because it's also very expensive to produce this magazine. And I thought, maybe this isn't a good idea to make something digital which nobody wants to read. And that's also the point where I came across Staffbase the first time. And Staffbase was a startup still in this point in time. And I learned a lot in this couple of years when I was introducing a central comms platform to a global manufacturing company. And now I'm here to talk a bit about my experiences and my views on how the market is developing in terms of digital workplace and also especially intranets. So if we are talking about communications, we are often also talking about intranets. And to start this, I would like to have a short look back into where are we coming from if we are talking about digital workplace, intranets inside of companies and doing communications. And the first thing which came to my mind is the stuff that we're calling social intranets and Enterprise 2.0. If you remember back into the year 2010, there was no conference without Enterprise 2.0. This came from social media, so Facebook was coming up, MySpace was coming up, and everybody said, hey, that's cool stuff, let's put this into our company. And they developed social intranets to have collaboration, to have communication, likes, comments, communities inside such an intranet. So this was a huge trend back 12 years ago. And what happened then? Then companies realized, somehow nobody is using those systems. And why is that? We forgot that there are systems where people are spending their working life in. So a salesperson is probably spending most of their time in a CRM system and in Outlook. An HR person is spending most of their working time in an HR process management tool. So nobody is coming to the social intranet automatically, and that's why they didn't work out so well. And what happened? There was the next trend coming up in 2015, which were the portal solutions. So companies tried to integrate each and every application into their intranet, which ended up with ridiculously solutions like integrating Outlook emails into the start page of an intranet. I'm not sure why they did this, because nobody could read an email, so you couldn't even see the whole subject of an email. And if you clicked on that, you will be redirected to Outlook. So those were the solutions which were developed a couple of years ago. And then there was the next thing that companies recognized. Hey, we are losing a lot of our audience because we have a lot of non-desk workers and they don't have access to this at all. And in 2019, there was this peak of mobile intranets and also employee apps. And Staffbase, actually, as one of the provider of employee apps, was founded in 2016. So they were already quite far developed, and I introduced Staffbase in 2018. So right before the peak, which was very successful. This is the last trend we have seen in the area of intranet. But the main question is, where are we now? So what is in 2022 with intranets, and what are the next trends? And this is what I brought. I brought 3 different topics. So the first one I want to talk about is trends in intranet strategies. So what can you do to make your lives easier inside of companies, to make intranets and digital workplace places more attractive for your employees. The second thing is I brought some real-life examples. So examples, how are other companies, different sizes, doing this and doing this very successful. And as we only have 30 minutes, the third topics will be a rather short one. So there will be some success factors. I can name them to you. Lottie and I and also a couple of other folks from Staffbase are still here today. So if you want to learn more, just visit our small booth on the second floor. But let's kick it off with intranet trends and to really understand what is going wrong, what is going right, and how can we improve the situation. We need to step one step back and see what does an intranet really do. And I tried to break this down into 3 very easy pictures to make it as memorizable as possible. And the first role of an intranet, I would like to call the shop window. So imagine you're going through the street, visiting a store. If you're looking at the shop window, you get an immediate impression about what is this shop selling and what is in for me. And this is one of the roles an intranet has to do. An intranet has to give every employee an impression about what is inside of the digital workplace, how can I get this stuff, what I'm getting out of it. And there are the things like communication. Communication is happening there, and communication hopefully for every employee. The second point I called Employee Experience Hub. Those are kind of HR processes which needs to be available for everybody. Easiest example is vacation requests. So we still are getting across a lot of companies where office workers get a digital vacation request, but non-office workers still have to do this via paper. So this is still reality in a lot of big companies, and this should be in this area of the shop window. Second area an intranet has to take care about is teamwork. So peer-to-peer communication, document sharing, and working also collaborative on documents, steering meetings, organizing meetings, so the whole collaboration stuff. And last but not least, the by far biggest part is what I would like to call the libraries. And it's plural because you have a lot of those libraries. So this is knowledge management, this is document libraries. So all this boring stuff where you have a lot of information going in. And the thing is that I would like to call them conventional intranets. Those are covering all of those areas. So this is what also social intranets try to cover. And the main question we have to ask ourselves is, does this really work? So is it working if we have conventional intranets going from the shop window until the libraries? And I think there is a yes and a no. For some companies it's working out, for some it isn't. And from my perspective, there are 3 main issues with this kind of approach. The first one is that those conventional intranets were designed mainly for office workers. So as soon as you have blue-collar workers, people at the shop floor, logistic workers, those don't have access to those kind of systems at all. So they don't have access to the shop window, they don't have access to documents, they don't have access to collaboration. The second thing is those platforms are way too complex. And with complexity, I mean the complexity comes from library and teamwork. So the important stuff, you want to make sure that everybody gets your communication, to ensure reach of your communication, is only the smallest part of such systems. And this leads to the third problem, that we have very long and expensive projects. So we are talking about implementation phases from 1 to 3 years. So at big companies, we see an easy project at 1 year, a medium-sized project at 2 years, and a large project at 3 years, and you can imagine how much this costs. So I'm not sure if this answers the question for you sufficiently. Is this working out? For me, in most cases, not. And we also have data on that. So last year, we did a study together with the School of Communication and Management and asked intranet responsibles, what are the main issues of current intranets? And if you only look at the stats rated more than 30%, you can see the first one is does not reach all the employees. The second one is messy. So the complexity shows that it isn't working out. And the scary thing is in my conversations with companies who are trying to reshape their digital workplace, something is happening which feels like a déjà vu for me. So there is one application which is the fastest growing application we ever had. Anybody has an idea what application I'm talking about? Nobody? Slack is the right direction. Microsoft Teams. Microsoft Teams is an application nearly every company tries to introduce at the moment. And if I'm talking to companies, I see one trend which is a bit scary for me, that the companies are trying to build their intranet based on Microsoft Teams. And I love Microsoft Teams. I enjoy working with it, but it's not an intranet. It's a collaboration tool. It's good for collaboration, but it's not good at storing documents. It's not good at storing huge amounts of information. And it's also not good for communication in most cases, because you have the same issue. Your blue-collar worker won't love Microsoft Teams. They will not even work with it in most cases. But how can we make it better? Getting back to those three images, shop window, teamwork, and libraries, what can we learn from this distribution? So I told the shop window is the thing which should be relevant and accessible for all the employees. And if we look on those three areas from left to right, we can see that the target group is getting smaller for each area of responsibility of an intranet. So the shop window should be something available for all the employees. Doesn't matter where they work, doesn't matter on which device they work, it should be accessible for all. Teamwork already has a smaller target group. So in most companies, teamwork and collaboration is only accessible by office workers. And in most cases, not even by all office workers, so the collaboration groups are rather small in comparison to the whole office workforce. And libraries then have the smallest target groups. If you think about something like a contract management, then only legal and sales will have access to it. If you think about a system for data protection documentation, then only legal and a couple of other folks will have access to it. So the target groups are getting smaller and smaller. And if we really look on this, then one key takeaway should be that the shop window is the thing you should focus on. You should make sure, if we are talking about communication inside of a company, that the shop window is the most attractive thing to ensure the access to also the teamwork and the library stages by having an attractive front door intranet and an attractive entry point for all employees. And this leads me to the top trend that we are currently seeing, and that also a lot of companies are integrating into their digital workplace. So we have good tools available. For library, for example, we have something like SharePoint and Confluence, so systems who were made to be the library of a company. Why don't we use them for that purpose? Why are we creating Frankenstein's monster with a social intranet covering all those three areas? We have tools like Slack and Teams who are good at collaboration. So people are loving them if they work with it. They are good at the stuff they are doing. So, but what with the shop window? And the shop window, as you can see, there is no system written on it, so you can do this with a lot of different platforms. Obviously, Staffbase is one of them. And the thing that we are seeing there is something we are calling front door intranet. So the central entry point for all employees on all devices, where you can create this shop window for all the employees. And the good thing is you can combine those systems. So specialization means modularization, but if you have an employee who's spending most of his working time in Microsoft Teams, it's maybe a good idea to implement or integrate the front door intranet also in Microsoft Teams to ensure that they get the information. And this could be either the whole front door intranet as one dedicated Teams app where everybody gets access to anything, or you integrate only the communications into separate teams where you can steer who is seeing what. So if you have a target group at one location, you can steer the location news for this location into one Teams team. So to ensure also personalization and targeting. So integration can be done on different levels, from linking until really technical deep integrations. And the thing is, this is not only my view. If you watch the latest Gartner review for the intranet market, then you can see, especially for companies who have a mixture between office workers and non-office workers, this front door approach is a very important one. This is what Gartner calls a modern intranet. And we see this happening at a lot of companies. And I promised I have some examples for you. And I would like to start with by far the biggest one, because big companies are also the companies who need to scale in those areas. And the example I brought has 5 divisions, more than 500,000 employees in over 200 countries, and they have over 300,000 non-desk workers. So they really need to scale, and I'm talking about the DPDHL group. So everybody knows this company, and I love this graphic because it's so powerful. So you can see from left to right, on the left side, you have all these systems which are relevant for the office colleagues. And on the other side, you have all the points which needs to be accessible for all colleagues, doesn't matter where they work. And you can see in the middle, there is Microsoft Teams and Smart Connect. And basically, Smart Connect is their front door intranet. So both systems are integrated into each other. Microsoft Teams is the system where most of the office workers spend their day in, and where also collaboration is happening. And Smart Connect is the layer above, which is accessible by all the staff, all the workforce, and where also where company news are happening, where a lot of interaction is happening in terms of social wall, my video. They have employee benefits, travel and expensive, time booking. So they have all those processes available from HR all the employees need. And DHL is winning a lot of prizes at the moment with this kind of approach. So they rolled this out a couple of years ago and are further improving this now. And the interesting thing is, no matter what kind of award they get, is it an intranet award, a digital workplace award, the award vendors are always calling this a cultural transformation project. And this is very interesting because we're far away from an IT project here. So it's not an IT project anymore, even though we are implementing a digital workplace. They are transforming their whole culture because they are bringing together 2 audiences, the office worker and the non-office worker. And obviously, not every company is that big, so I brought a smaller example. This is my previous employer, where I started to integrate Staffbase as well. And as you can see, Heraeus had a split from the 15,000 employees worldwide, 7,000 were non-office workers. And you can see we also had this front door intranet approach for all colleagues, and we had collaboration on Microsoft Teams and SharePoint only for the office workers, integrated into each other, so you have a seamless switch to both of them. And you can also see on the screenshot there is an app version and a desktop version, so it doesn't matter on which kind of device you're working. But 15,000 is still quite big. And the last example I wanted to bring is Sparda Bank Berlin, which is a small financial institute from Germany. They only have 800 employees. And the special thing here is they only have office workers. So they don't have this split between non-office and office. And they are still going this direction of having this front door intranet to have a more attractive layer above the collaboration area and having a single place where everything is happening and every employee can reach any other application and any other process. And if I want to summarize this, I would say we still need an intranet in 2022, even though we are doing this specialization and modularization, but we need this front door intranet, especially for this shop window case. And you remember back to this slide where I had the main problems of current intranets. So those were a couple of outcomes which are quite obvious. So does not reach all employees, is messy, isn't capable of mobile devices. And if you cluster that, you can find out that there are 5 different success factors which you can take into consideration if you're doing a relaunch or an introduction of a new digital workplace, which are personalization, structure, design, and analytics. And last but not least, interaction. And this is also the topics that we are bringing into our workshops with our prospects, with our customers. In every foundation workshop we are doing, we are talking about target groups and employee segments. We have our, big 5 of employee segments you need to consider in any project. We are talking about how to make a good structure based on personalization for such a kind of project. We're talking about how to influence the design and how to build trust with design, which is an important thing. So I learned this with a lot of pain because I did 2 different pilots, one with a branded application so that people can download an employee app with the Heraeus logo from the App Store, and one where the app said the name of the vendor, and basically nobody wanted to download the other app because everybody said, I'm just trusting the application where the Heraeus and the company logo is on. Analytics, I hopefully this is completely clear, because analytics is something we all need to do and we all need to improve. So only what you can measure you can improve. So analytics is something you need to consider from the beginning on. And interaction is something where you can engage really with people, where we have cool success stories, seeing in companies where stuff is going on with interaction, and what we are bringing in is different levels of interaction, how to start based on the current company culture of interaction and engagement. And if you want to learn more about those kinds of success factors, Lottie and I are still here. We have our booth upstairs, so feel free to approach us also via LinkedIn. And that's, in a nutshell, what I want to bring to you. Thank you.
Does this work now? Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Sorry about that. Great presentation. Also, a great overview of what's happening actually in the field, and how things are going to become more connected. And I love that page of what's like the underground picture.
The subway network.
Very clear. DHL, yep. Very clear. Cool. Any questions?
Hi, I'm Charmaine, and I have a lot of questions. My question to you is, how did you handle transitioning employees into this intranet system, and especially employees who are not, let's say, tech savvy? For a new onboarder, it would be quote unquote easier to join because everything's new. But let's say you have a tenured employee of 20 years who's very much used to doing things one way. So how did you handle that transition?
Yep, that's a very good question. Let me highlight two things. So one thing is that we have done a classic rollout. So the non-office workers, especially at Heraeus, where I did this on my own, were completely disconnected. So they haven't got any credentials in the past to any kind of IT system. So that was the first time. And what we did is really a location by location rollout, where we looked for people who can distribute the initial credentials and tell the people how to log in, how to use this, and why they should use it. But the second thing I want to mention was my experience from the pilot phase, where I was totally happy going into a production site, into the shift change, and asked the people, hey, do you want to try this out? We have this new cool app. And nobody said, yes, I want to do. So everybody was, yeah, it's coming from the corporate office. Not sure if this is really worthwhile for me. And then there were two guys who, said, okay, give it to me, I will try it out. They logged in once, and then we could see in analytics, they never came back. And this was kind of eye-opening for me, but then something very magic happened, because we had a problem on site, and we were able to push a notification to those two employees. And they got this to their smartphone, and I'm not lying, 20 minutes later, I got a phone call from the head of production, and he said, I want to have this for all my employees, because it has a personal benefit. And my learning on that was, we asked every location, where can we add personal benefit? Where are things happening which currently are not good communicated? Incidents, so in the US, blizzards and stuff like that. And if you can prepare them and maybe also roll the app out in the blizzard time, then you have a good tool to reach the maximum employees and to show them the benefit they are getting out of it.
I'm not a heckler. I'm Lottie, by the way. Just to add, excuse me, just to add to that, I think I was actually a customer of Staffbase before I joined Staffbase, and 80% of my audience were remote workers, so they were engineers that were out in the field visiting customers. They were really tricky to get hold of. So one of the things that we did was hold line manager training for those people that have the face-to-face time with them. And we made it a part of their one-to-one that they had to have with their employees to say, you need to spend 10 minutes getting them to download this app, logging them in. So we kind of empowered them, kind of trained the trainer to help support with that. And I know we heard a little bit about it today and yesterday about the importance of empowering line managers to have those conversations for you. It's not just the comms people's job to let people know. So we helped the line managers to do that too. Sorry, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, we can have one more question. Yeah?
Hi, thanks for the presentation. Super interesting. My name's Holly. I work for WeTransfer. I'm interested in the idea of app, right, and having it on people's phones, particularly with DHL, perhaps, who are bringing the non-office employees and offline employees together into one space. And I think one of the barriers that I've experienced in other organizations is people not wanting to use their personal phones for work. And so I'm wondering, is it that employees already have work phones in place where they can download the app, or is the ask that employees do download the work app on their personal phones, and are there any challenges in doing that?
Thank you. I would say it's definitely a challenge. A lot of companies, it's kind of a mix. You know, some companies do provide work phones for their employees, in which case it's super easy because a lot of the time you can manage their devices and just download it for them. But yeah, it's kind of using their own devices, just not wanting to have work stuff on a personal phone, but also using their data or whatever. So I think that's, I talk a lot about kind of push-pull content within the app. So we need to give them enough of a reason to want it on their personal phone. So rather than just using it for corporate communications, because they probably don't want to see that on their personal phone. You know, we often encourage companies to use social channels. So for one of the things that we did for our engineers was like a tell us your best sunset competition. So they, you know, would take a picture on their phone and then put it in there, and there was a prize for them. So it's about making sure that it's not content that isn't relevant to them, that they won't care about, but that they have a reason to actually want to go in to the app, or, you know, if they need to request holiday on that, they will definitely download it on their personal phone because they don't have another way to do that. So it's about getting, it's a balance, definitely, but it's about getting enough content in there for them so that they want to download it rather than just we tell them to. Excellent,
excellent. It's time to continue. You guys have a booth upstairs, right? So if you have any questions, please visit them. I'm sure you'll be able to answer that. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.